how do we do war when it comes to pride? And we hit on that text last week. Brethren, these things, as we talked about before, they come with passion. They come with desire. They come to do war against our soul. They do battle against our soul. They wage war. These are anti-soul forces, passions. And in fact, when Paul talks about putting off the old man, he says it belongs to the former manner of life. And he says that it's corrupt through deceitful desires. It's those very deceitful desires that wage war against our souls. And they come in all manner, brethren. Pride comes at us in 1,000 faces. When you talk too much, when you interrupt others, when you want to be heard and you don't care what somebody else has to say, when you basically give your opinion when somebody didn't ask for it. I mean, there's all number of ways that pride just manifests itself in our life. Being rude to people, talking down to people, wanting the preeminence, wanting the attention. It comes all manner of ways. And as we were looking at last week, I think this is just, brethren, this text it speaks to me because it tells me what Jesus taught and it tells me who Jesus is. And it's that text that I mentioned to you last week from Matthew chapter 20. And if you have your Bibles, I want you to look at this. I mean, you folks know. I think you all have a feel for this. You remember how in fact, I just heard Charles Leiter do a message as I was driving back from Bentley on Saturday night, Sunday morning. There's one parable that's found in Mark's Gospel that's not found anywhere else. Anybody know which one it is? It's one where a farmer comes out and he plants. And then he goes off and he does other things and he goes to bed and he wakes every day and it comes up. First the blade, and then this blade basically comes to fruition and it grows. And it says he knows not how. You ever read that one? You know the one I'm talking about? And basically Charles was saying in that message how growth is imperceptible. Well, one of the things is you want to grow. You want to put away pride. You want to do battle. One of the things is it's kind of like watching your children grow. If you just keep your eyes on your children all the time, you can't see them grow. It's not perceptible, right? It's kind of like if you stood and you tried to watch a tree grow, or even something that grows fast. What's a fast-growing plant? Weeds, they grow fast. Go out and sit in a chair and watch a weed all day and see if you can see it grow. I mean, you just can't do it. It's imperceptible. And the same reality is going to be true with us. You know what? We can do battle. We need to do battle. We need to change the way we think. We need to be renewed in the spirit of our minds. We need to set our eyes on Christ. But you know as well as I do, the growth is somewhat imperceptible. I mean, it happens just like our children. It happens if my mom comes and she sees her grandkids and she hadn't seen them for 6 months, all of a sudden, wow, they've really grown, and she can notice the difference. This might be like Sierra and Amy. They might come back in 6 months and they might say, wow, so-and-so, they have really grown. Where if they asked us, we'd say, well, I don't know, we really haven't seen it because we've been watching them every day. So it's just kind of imperceptible. But that's the way growth in the kingdom happens. But I tell you this, the way we learn Christ has everything to do with this. There is something supernatural in the midst of all this. The Spirit of God works something. We're told to do these things. We're told to humble ourselves. We're told to be these things. And so we need to be striving. We need to be fighting. We need to be amputating. We need to be working towards this. We need to be in prayer. We need to be in this book all the time. We need to keep our noses there. We need to prayerfully read this book. Seek God to enlighten us, to sanctify us through it, to transform us into degree after degree of glory as we gaze upon Christ. We need to be pressing with this, gouging out eyes when we see these things. We need to identify pride. We need to see it for what it is. And imperceptibly, degree by degree, we are going to have growth, and it's going to come. And brethren, as I said before, some people grow faster than others. Some people they're more like beating at the air. We don't want our efforts to just be like swinging at the air. We want them to matter. We want to make our punches land. We want to be aggressive in this. We want to be wise in this fight for humility. And remember, as I said before, brethren, it's just a fact. Every good, righteous characteristic, every good thing, every good work, they all grow in the very air of humility. Nothing good grows in the soil of pride. You know that? I know that. In fact, all the more God humbles each one of us, really, it speaks loudly about how much He intends to use us. Well, here's Matthew 20. Now, I want to pick up reading in verse 20, this account again. Let's read through it quickly, and then I want to go back and I want to just draw out some points, and we're going to basically stay right here all the rest of the time. Verse 20, Matthew 20:20. Then the mother of the sons of Zebedee came up to him, Christ, with her sons, and kneeling before him, she asked him for something. And he said to her, "What do you want?" She said to him, "Say that these two sons of mine are to sit, one at your right hand and one at your left, in your kingdom." Jesus answered, "You do not know what you are asking. Are you able to drink the cup that I am to drink?" They said to him, "We are able." He said to them, "You will drink my cup, but to sit at my right hand and at my left is not mine to grant, but it is for those for whom it has been prepared by my Father." And when the 10 heard it, they were indignant at the two brothers, but Jesus called them to him and said, "You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great ones exercise authority over them. It shall not be so among you. But whoever would be great among you must be your servant, and whoever would be first among you must be your slave. Even as the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. Now, let's go back up to the beginning. Let's walk through this more slowly this time and pick some things out. Verse 20, then the mother of the sons of Zebedee came up to him with her sons, and kneeling before him, she asked him for something. Now, my understanding is that the mother of James and John, those are the sons of Zebedee, right? Also known by what name? Boanerges, which means what? Sons of Thunder. My understanding is that, and I get this from John MacArthur, so without knowing where all the references are to prove this right off, I remember him saying it at one point, that the mother of James and John was probably related to Jesus' mother, and that they were probably cousins or family. Because I haven't heard it recently, but MacArthur has a message on this whole section, and he says that what's happening here is James and John are using a family power play. They're trying to get the advantage over all the other disciples because they got a family connection. And MacArthur's probably right. I mean, I'm sure he researched it to the hilt and he knows exactly what he was talking about. So I trust his word on that. Now, if you go to the parallel accounts, Matthew's the only one that mentions the fact that the mother of the sons of Zebedee came up to him with her sons, and kneeling before him, she asked him for something. In the other accounts, do you know what it says? It says James and John came up. It doesn't mention the mother. So the fact is that you can take mom out and you still have a good account here that they came up and asked. And you notice, in fact, that even though she asks in Matthew's account, and Jesus says to her, "What do you want?" When she says to him, "Say to these two sons of mine that they're to sit one on your right hand and one on your left," Jesus' answer is towards the sons. You see that? He says, Jesus answered, "You do not know what you are asking. Are you able to drink the cup that I am to drink?" They said to him, "We are able." You see, he actually answers the sons. And in fact, in the other accounts, you don't even find the mother there at all. You just find they asked Jesus, Jesus answered them. And, that's not contradiction. The mother was asking, and they were asking. I mean, they were all in this together. This didn't just happen on the spur of the moment. I guarantee you, mom and sons were talking about this ahead of time, right? They had a plan here. They want to get the chief seats. So, now, we looked at this before. They had a desire. We see this, that repeatedly they were arguing about who was going to be the greatest, right? We looked at the several other texts where Jesus would say to them, "Hey guys, what were you talking about on the road?" And nobody wanted to answer because they were talking about who was going to be the greatest. They were constantly talking about who was going to be the greatest. Jesus says, "I'm going to go to Jerusalem and be crucified." And it's like they don't even hear him because they're arguing about who's going to be the greatest. It's amazing the times that they would be arguing about that. But brethren, when it comes down to it, every single occurrence of pride in your life, every manifestation of it comes back to this. You want to be great. That's what it is. You want to be lifted up. The very concept of pride has to do with lifted up. It has to do with exaltation. Whereas humility is low, lowliness. Pride is highness. It is haughtiness. It is that lifted up. And that's what they're doing. They're coming along. Can you imagine? They're on the road. They're arguing about who's going to be the greatest. James and John, they're over there. Hey, we need to talk to Mom. Certainly Jesus will listen to Aunt Zebedee. And that's what they're trying to do. And so pride is really generating this thing. But watch this. Say that these two sons of mine are to sit one on your right hand and one on your left in your kingdom. Now Jesus, as I brought out last week, Jesus never says that there isn't a seat at his right hand and his left hand. In fact, he says there is, and it's reserved for certain people. But listen to what he says. He says, "You don't know what you ask." What? Seems to me like they understand perfectly what they're asking, right? They want the chief seats. I mean, right? James and John, they know exactly what they're asking for. What are they asking for?
Preeminence.
They want preeminence. They want the right hand and the left hand. They want the chief seats. They want the closest seats to Jesus. They know exactly what they're asking for. Why in the world would Jesus come along and say, "You don't know what you're asking"?
They don't know what it entails.
Yeah, they don't. That's exactly what he means. He's saying to them, hey guys, there actually is a seat at my right hand and left hand. They do know what they're asking for as far as where they want to sit. What he's implying here is you don't have the slightest idea what you must go through to sit there. Which that's usually the way with pride. Look, at its depths, pride is ignorant. Pride is a lie. Because basically, it's like, was it Spurgeon that said, the worse and worse and worse we think about ourselves, the closer and closer and closer we are to reality. You see, the problem with pride is it is an overestimation of self. Pride is never an accurate picture of who I am. It is always a misrepresentation. It's always a lie. It's me thinking I'm greater than I am. And that's the way with pride. It doesn't tend to see things right. And Jesus says, boys, you're not seeing things right. I know you are on a trip to get these high seats. And I know you've all been arguing about it. And I've asked you about these things. And I want to tell you, you don't know what you're asking. Now look at this. Are you able to drink the cup that I am to drink? Well, here's the thing. As I was telling you last week, brethren, Jesus is not discouraging true greatness here. Not at all. In fact, He tells them how to be great. And this is the thing I was pressing you folks with last week. We need to strive for true greatness. We need to realize what it is and how it's to be had. And Jesus says this, are you able to drink the cup that I'm going to drink? Well, Lord, what does that have to do with anything? They're asking about seats. Why are you talking about a cup? Why would Jesus talk about a cup when they're asking about seats? What's the relation?
Persecution?
The seats come by way of the cup.
That's it right there. The seat comes by way of the cup. That's what He's saying. And then He says, now look, you know what you find? Jesus humbled Himself. And He humbled Himself to the obedience of the cross and even death on that cross. And in having done so, God highly exalted Him. Brethren, the path to exaltation is the cup. That's what He's saying. If you would be great, put away your ideas. You know not what you ask. Brethren, I have found this to be so. Brethren, you can think, you can look at things and think, oh, how great it would be to be able to preach like Spurgeon. Have you ever read the cup God gave Spurgeon to drink? You say, I'd like to be like Paul Washer. Have you ever talked to Paul? Have you ever found out the cup? You see, folks, in God's kingdom, Jesus is about ready to say this. The Gentiles, when they have leaders and rulers, but He says it's not going to be that way with you. You see, in the kingdom operates the opposite of the world. Brethren, I want to encourage you to greatness. But the path to, look, these are the words of Christ. The Scriptures are plain. if you would seek exaltation, it comes by way of the cup. Isn't it amazing? Are you able to drink the cup that I must drink? How did they answer?
Yep.
Their pride is really very self-confident. Yes. You know what I find amazing about this? Jesus doesn't browbeat them. You know what? That was a very arrogant answer. And you know what? Jesus, he had such patience with his disciples. That's very encouraging. You know what he says? That's right. You're going to drink it. And he realized when he said that they had no idea what they were. They just spouted off so quickly. We're able. Jesus knew what they would have to go through. He said, you're right. You will drink that cup. But to assign you those seats, he said, they must be given to those to whom they are reserved, to whom it has been prepared by my Father. And when the 10 heard it, now you see their pride. All the pride's coming out here. When the 10 heard it, they're indignant at the two brothers. Brethren, this is just like us. How often do you find yourself there? Indignant. Somebody else wants the preeminence. Somebody else is proud. Somebody else, and you get upset. Not just because there's a demonstration of pride and it's ungodly and it's unrighteous, but because in your heart you're just as proud as they are. I mean, pride is just all over in these guys. And Jesus is just dealing it with their indignance. He could have just slapped them across the head and said, you bunch of idiots, look how proud you are. But he just teaches them. I mean, we see his humility in the midst of all this. He's trying to prepare them. He's trying to gear them up. He is going to leave. He realizes what kind of lives they have to go through. He wants them to recognize that his kingdom operates on exactly opposite principles from the world. Jesus called them to him. Isn't that amazing? Rather than distancing himself, rather than storming off and saying, man, I just cannot work with you guys. You guys are so full of yourselves and so full of pride. Jesus says, men, come in here, move in tight. Sit down here. I want to teach you. You see, this is the way they learn Christ. He says, you know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great ones exercise authority over them. That's how it works in this world. That's how it works. In this world, greatness means I crush somebody else. I put somebody else down. I stomp on them. I make them little. I exalt myself at their expense. That's how this world works. I mean, you see it. Do you not see it in our government? Look at our congressmen. Look at our representatives. Look at our president. Look at them. They don't even have the same kind of... They don't have Social Security like the rest of the people. Why? Because they're the great ones. They've got standards different for themselves. We're the peons. We're supposed to support them. Jesus is hitting it right on the head. Kings and queens and presidents and brethren, isn't this how it's always been? They live high and they expect us to pay taxes to support that. We are their servants. Basically, the way this country was started is we're supposed to put them in office so that they served us, but that's not what it is. We're basically serving them. They make laws and they give themselves raises. You know they do that, right? They vote themselves raises. We don't vote themselves raises. because they're our representatives. They're supposed to represent our best interest. But that's how it is. That's what pride is all about. It's stomping down other people. I mean, think about it. Think about slavery. The whole goal behind all that. Have somebody serve me. Somebody cater to me. I mean, basically the world operates this way. Think about just even the advertising in this country. Advertising is geared towards pride. It's towards making the guy that gets their product, he's cool, he's exalted, he's worshipped, he's adored, he's the envy of everybody else. And the guy that doesn't use their product comes off like an idiot, right? It's always that way. That's the way this world operates. That's how it portrays itself. And see, the thing is, by nature, we feel that. By nature, we want to stomp the other guy. We want to beat the other guy. We want to be the victors. We want them to be the losers. We want that all to be at their expense. Right? I mean, that's how this world goes. And Jesus knows it. And he reaches right into this world around us, and he draws this out. You know that the rules are that the Gentiles lord it over them. The great ones. Great ones. Brethren, this is one of the ways you can see when you've got false religion. David Koresh. I mean, he basically harvested the young girls for himself. Abused and used and horrible things. Why? For himself. He was the great one. He exercised authority over, great in the eyes of the world. That's what Jesus means here. When he says great ones, he doesn't mean great in his eyes. He means the great ones of the world. And that's how you can see false religion. When you get the Benny Hinns that come along and they're able to say, I got the last $5 out of that old widow. Just using people. Just using people. Just want their money. Want them to applaud them and fill their seats and make their empire great. Just using. Jesus says, that isn't the way it is with my kingdom. Men, you are the foundation, built on the foundation of the apostles and prophets, Christ Jesus himself being the cornerstone. Those apostles, you men, you are the foundation stones of my kingdom. In a real way, you're the great ones. And you're not to be like the world. My kingdom is entirely different. Well, how is it? He says, verse 26, it shall not be so among you. Brethren, it shall not be so among us. I mean, you kind of get this feeling, it shall not be so among you. It's almost as though Jesus isn't just saying, I recommend that it not be so, or I'm teaching you that it not be so. It's as though Jesus is saying, I'm going to see to it that it is not so in my kingdom. It will not be so in my kingdom. Brethren, this is a dead giveaway, true and false religion. Dead giveaway. Look at the Roman Catholic Church. Look at the popes, and the bishops, and the cardinals. Look at their jewels. Look at their wealth. Look at their solid gold things. And then go look at the poverty that so many Catholics are in. Why would they not liquidate every bit of that to help the hungry. Are there no orphans among the Catholics that they have to hoard their gold? Catholic priests using young boys for their pleasure? Jesus says it will not be so in my kingdom. The great ones aren't going to take advantage of other people. The great ones are going to serve. The great ones are going to be slaves. Isn't that what he says here? It shall not be so among you. Whoever would be great among you must be your servant, and whoever would be first among you must be your slave. And Jesus is saying, again, he's not saying that there isn't a place at his right hand and left hand, and he's not saying that you shouldn't seek greatness. But he's saying it doesn't come by lording it over people. That's how the world sees greatness. You have servants. You know, the great ones, like the Hollywood movie stars who have all these servants working for them, and they have somebody clean their pool, and they have gardeners. You look at these popes walking with their big hats and their expensive clothing. Have you ever seen that? You've seen pictures of the Pope walking with, probably a gown that cost $20,000, surrounded by solid gold everything, and he claims to be the descendant of Peter? Can you imagine Peter, the fisherman? You think he looked anything like that? You think he wore a hat on his head like that? This is the same Peter who came along after sitting at the feet of Christ. And he said, humble yourselves, therefore. He said, submit one to another. He said, cast all your cares. He learned at the feet of Christ. Brethren, slave. Do you want to be great? Do you want to press on to greatness? Brethren, as I said before, strive to be great. But we need to have minds that are renewed with a mindset that, brethren, when we naturally recoil from serving, I'm fairly convinced that in my grace group, I'm going to have foot washing at least once. I know Matt hates that. We'll let Matt lead his grace group the way he wants to. He thinks it's cultish to do that, because there are cults that are given to that. But brethren, the reason that I would do it is not because I want to fall into some legalistic practice. The reason I would do it is because there is something serving and demeaning in it. And there's something close, because you're touching what is considered to be somewhat of an unclean part of one of your brothers or sisters' bodies. And it's an expression that I think a lot of times in our day we don't get a feel for. I don't think we do. Even in the Christian world, I know we want to strive to serve one another, but I think there's many ways that we don't do things like foot washing. Maybe some, but I think there's a place for that. Brethren, if we would be great, we need to be those. Did you get the word? You must be your slave. Whoever would be first among you must be your slave. So there it is. You want to know how we learn Jesus? We need to keep this in mind. Brethren, do you keep your mind set on things above? The glories to be had. Brethren, what I read here is the path to greatness, the path to glory, is the path of slavery. But this isn't against your will. This is willing slavery. And then Jesus says this. See, Jesus doesn't just teach us here. He then says, I'm the example. Even as the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give His life as a ransom for many. Now, brethren, you see what He's saying here? You see the two realities that He brings together, that He developed? The cup and slavery. He brings them both together by His own example. Because, brethren, what He's saying is, when He gave His life a ransom for many and He drank that cup, He did it out of serving others. He did it in slavery. Brethren, did you ever hear where Christ said that there's no greater expression of love than that you lay down your life for the brethren? You see, it's not just persecution. It's taking a cup to your lips out of love for your brethren. Listen, we can get this attitude where we say, we can get this attitude where we're thinking, well, I want to be great. Just like those guys wanted to sit on the right hand and the left hand, well, I want to sit on the right hand and the left hand. And Jesus told us that the path to that greatness, the path to being able to sit there, is by serving others. And so, I've got a picture in my mind of two guys. Well, I remember when I was lost. I remember watching this movie. It's coming to my mind right now, where it's the holidays. Guys are getting out of work at Christmas. It's in New York City. Two guys eye the same cab, and they eye each other, and they eye the cab, and they eye each other, and they both run and they dive in the doors on both sides. Well, brethren, that's how it is in the world. It's basically competition. I'm going to get one over on the other guy. You know, you can think of all sorts of examples. Brethren, what Jesus isn't saying is just take that attitude over into Christianity, where you can hear, it's the morning and you live here in the Grace House and you hear one of the brothers is already up in the other room and you go run for your towel because you want to get to the bathroom before he does. And you're thinking, oh no, I remember our Bible study from last night. And I need to be a servant because I want to get a better seat in heaven than him. And I want to get a better seat in heaven than him, then I better let him go first.
Thanks.
You see, that's not what Jesus means. You guys get that, right? He's not coming along saying, well, you guys are all in competition and you want those chief seats and you sent mom to do this and these guys are indignant. And so if you guys really want to excel one another, let me tell you how to do it. If you really want to be able to in heaven look over at the other guy and say, hi, I got to step up on you. I served you more than you served me. That's not what Jesus is doing here. You know what he's doing? He's saying, for this to be legit, for this truly to be humility, for this truly to be the path to greatness, brethren, we serve one another out of love. That's what he's saying here. He's saying the path to greatness is the path of the cup. It's the path of serving and taking a cup to your lips that even is giving your life a ransom for others. You see, he's the example. Brethren, that example goes all the way to laying down our life for the brethren. That's the cup. And we don't do it to get one up on them. We serve them in hopes that they will have as high a place as possible in heaven as well. Not in competition, but we serve them for their good. Jesus gave Himself a ransom for us that we should be seated on His throne with Him. That we should be where He is. Brethren, He did it to bring us up as high as possible. You all see what I'm getting at here? But brethren, in the end of it, serving and slavery and the cup and giving your life a ransom for many, brethren, this is the path. I can remember reading in Pilgrim's Progress. Pilgrim had asked, was it interpreter? I think maybe, as he was, no, it must have been later. But he asked somebody, have you seen any other pilgrims pass by? And he said, well, yes, I saw one man by the name of Faithful. He says, oh, I know him. He comes from my country. His name used to be such and such. I don't remember what it was. Anybody remember? Anyways, he says, I know him. He says, yes, he went on ahead. And so Christian goes off after him. And he's calling out to him. And Faithful doesn't want to slow down. He's scared to death to stop in this race for the celestial city. And so he won't slow down. And so Christian kicks it into overdrive. He's trying to come up on him. And he's hollering out to him, and Faithful keeps saying, I can't slow down, I can't slow down. So Christian really kicks it into gear, and he passes him up. And he said, Bunyan says, all of a sudden Christian had a vainglorious smile, a smile of pride that he just passed up Faithful. And it says that Christian turned back and he looked at him with that smile on his face. And as soon as his head was turned backwards, smiling vaingloriously at Faithful, he falls right on his face. And now Faithful has to help him up. And now the two go on in humility. But brethren, that's the way of it. This, you see, brethren, they were in competition. And Jesus says, look, the path to greatness is not the path of competition. Oh, there's a victory to be had, and we need to overcome. But brethren, this path is a path of the cup, and the cup that Jesus drank, and the cup that James and John would drink. The cup of death, the cup of suffering, to seek to be a light to the world, to seek to be a help to God's people, to seek to strengthen. You remember how it was with the Apostle Paul? If anybody was going to sit close to Christ. And yet in the end he would say, you know what he didn't say? Oh, I've so outrun all of you, and I've so outserved all of you. I've got the chief seat in heaven. I just want out of here to go take my seat and just gloat in my victory over all of you. He said, no, to depart and to be with Christ would be better. But for your sakes, I need to stay. I'm caught between the two. To depart and be with Christ. But the reason that I'm not just absolutely 100% sold out to that is because of the love that I have for you, and I want to continue to help you. You remember what he said to the Romans? I look for opportunity to be able to come there and share my faith, that we should mutually encourage one another, build one another up. Brethren, this whole thing is about drinking this cup, about slavery, where I lay down my life to try to get you to the end and to finish as well as possible. It's not letting you go through a door first so that I get a chief seat over you in heaven. It's letting you go through the door first because you're a son of the King, and I'm going to honor you because you are that, and I'm going to show deference to you because I love you and care for you, and I want to give you the honor. Brethren, this is the path to greatness. This needs to be our mindset. A lot of young Christians here, a lot of competition, naturally. We live in a culture where humility is despised, where the guy that walks over the other, where the guy that can hit the other football player and leave him wounded and go celebrate and raise his hands up, where the guy can put his finger in the other guy's face and say, I bested you. You know, that's the way the world is. But that's not, Jesus says, it will not be that way among you. It will not be. Brethren, how have we learned Christ? Christ was exalted to some place none of us will be exalted to. In the sacrifice that He made, in the cup that He drank, in the humility that He showed, in the work that He did. Brethren, don't you ever, the devil will come along and try to convince you of this. Jesus just did it to get a high seat. He did it to get glory. He did it to bring glory to Himself. He did it to bring glory to His Father. He doesn't really, He just used you. After all, it's all about the glory of God. And look how easy God just throws sinners into hell. He didn't care about people. He just uses men. It's like He said to Eve, look, Eve, God doesn't want the best for you. If He did, He'd let you eat of that fruit. He knows that when you eat it, you'll be like this. He just doesn't, He's withholding something from you. That's the way the devil comes in. Don't you believe it for a second. Look, God does throw sinners into hell, but it's absolutely righteous judgment. Absolutely. Men and women deserve it. God would be unjust if He didn't do it. It's absolutely necessary. But I'll remind you of this, God so loved the world that He sent His Son. It doesn't say that He just so loved Himself, so loved His glory. He so loved the world that He sent His Son. Remember what Jesus said. He said, it's not even though I have to beseech my Father on your behalf. He said, He loves you. We're told that the Father loves us as He loves the Son. We're told that the Son loves us as the Father loves the Son. Don't you ever let the devil come in and say that. The Bible says that Jesus Christ came into the world to seek and save sinners. It says that He loved us. Have you ever read Paul? He loved me and gave Himself for me. That's what the Bible says. Brethren, Jesus humbled Himself and He went to the cross out of love. And He says, that is the way it is with my kingdom. Greatness doesn't just come through loveless sacrifice. That's what 1 Corinthians 13 is all about. Though you have sacrifice and you can give ever so much and give so much sacrifice that you even give your body to be burned, if you have not love, you're nothing. Brethren, this is the humility that we're called. This is the cup. Brethren, lay down your life for your brethren. Drink that cup. God help us. Can you imagine if we get to Judgment Day and these, maybe all three of these ladies right here, can you imagine if they lay down their lives in India trying to bring the gospel to children? Wouldn't that be glorious? And wouldn't it be great if we at home were praying to that end? That they would be able to give their lives in love, just like Amy Carmichael, just like Gladys Allward, just like various others pour themselves into children. Brethren, lay down your lives for one another. That at least starts with pray for one another. Esteem others better than yourself. Serve one another. Help one another. Bear one another's burdens. Brethren, are you loving each other? Look, if you bring this cup to your lips, that cup cannot possibly contain backbiting and gossip and slander of your brothers and sisters. Not even remotely. Brethren, this is the way we learn Christ. This is His teaching. It will not be so among you. You are not to live this way. You're to be a slave. Slavery is the path to greatness. Brethren, if we all serve one another that way, and I guarantee this, people who love that way in this life will love that way in perfection in the glory to come. And as Jonathan Edwards, he portrays, brethren, if you ever want to see just a glorious picture of heaven, he's written a little book called, that's the one I read in our grace group that one time. It's Heaven, a World of Joy? A World of Love, something like that. But anyways, he paints this picture, brethren, of those who actually did excel others and are exalted to a higher seat. They will have exalted and greater capacities to behold Christ. And with that greater capacity, to know Christ. And with that greater capacity, to rejoice in Christ. But because they are exalted higher and have greater humility, having that higher place, they will be all the more humble. And those who have lower places will all the more delight because of the love they have for their brother and sisters, that they have a chief position over them. Their love will explode in joy so that the exaltation of the other actually just abounds to their own joy. And it spills over all that much more into their own joy. And because of the greater humility in the other, it only increases everybody else's love for them. And because the others are more humble and they look down with all that much greater humility and lowliness in light of those who don't have the position that they have. And so the whole thing just erupts in love and in glory and in joy. And everybody is filled to the maximum. But brethren, we need to have foretaste of that here. That's what it means to take such a cup to our lips and to be slaves like this and to lay down our lives and to not come to be served, but to serve and to give our lives a ransom for many. Did you guys all catch that? Even as? Did you catch that? What Jesus is saying is, I am the example that you are to follow. Coming not to be served, but to serve and give your life a ransom for many is even as. That's as you and I are supposed to live and to walk. Brethren, and this is really something that I have to keep in mind as well as a pastor. Brethren, there are a lot of days in wanting to protect the church and in wanting to feed the church good food and pray and intercede and lead the church aggressively and have the church sacrifice, that there's a cost. And there's a lot of days when I feel like, Lord, I don't want to go on. But you know what? I want to be constrained just as much by these principles as Paul was to not want to go to glory. In the same way, he was in that strait. Betwixt the two, I want to be in that too. That out of my love for the brethren, as hard as it might ever be to pastor God's flock, that with a desire to drink that cup and to be a slave for you. Brethren, let it be mutual. Let us all feel that. Brethren, can you imagine what our church would look like if that reigned in our midst? It'd be heaven on earth. And Jesus says, I believe this. I believe that because of false professors and then levels of immaturity in God's true people, we don't have this. But I believe this, that among God's true people, because of Jesus' words, it shall not be that way among you. Brethren, I really believe that among God's true people in our church, it's growing, it's excelling, it's manifesting itself, and I believe it all the more will in the days ahead. And I believe we have every expectation that we are going to be triumphant in this battle over pride, and that we will all the more serve one another in the days ahead, and that we will grow in this. This is the way we learn Jesus. Jesus is pretty certain here. He says, it shall not be so among you. Let that ring in your minds, brethren. It shall not be so. Our time here is short. The example is clear. Even as the Son of Man did not come to be served. Brethren, lay it down. The more preeminent position you have in the church, the more mature you become, the more recognized, the more gifted. Brethren, that isn't so that you can have other people applaud you, serve you, make much of you. It's so that you can all the more pour out your life for others. As you grow in the church, it ought to be to serve, to be an example, to lay down your life, even as the Son of Man. Brethren, the path to humility is putting this cup to your lips. May God help us to drink it. But that's the path. I think you can all see it. It's pretty clear teaching from the Lord. Any comments, questions, observations? Well, this is the last Bible study that we're going to have Amy and Sierra with us for quite a while. So, y'all are going to pray for them, right? You're going to look over at those two empty seats there and you're going to be reminded to pray for them. Daily, brethren. This comes down right here. See, Kenny, Donna, they're in their 50s. Sierra and Amy, they're one of you. What I mean by that, they're the age of a lot of you young people. You might have some disconnect from the Flasspollers, some disconnect from the Richies. A lot of you never knew who they were. You know these two. John Seitzma, some of you may not know him all that well. He's another generation as well. These two girls, you know them. Brethren, bear their burden. You see, that's what serving them is going to do. Brethren, we can't even begin to explore the depths of this cup unless we're serious about intercessory prayer. How can we say we love the brethren? How can you say, Jesus says, this is love, that you lay down your life for the brethren. My brothers and sisters, my young brothers and sisters especially, if you're not able daily, regularly, to lift up others in prayer, you haven't even got to first grade with regards to what it is to lay down your life for others. The humility of this. Being truly great in the kingdom. Intercede. Lift up. Bring the burden of others to the throne.